the economic of the future is the middle class, it's the small business owners. Because as AI grows and we get to more, I guess, a very AI centric economy, you're going to a lot of workers are going to be able to lose their jobs on the national level, and who's going to be there to help pick that up? And it's going to be small businesses to pick up those employees, retrain them, and put them into their businesses to provide them with support. So I think in the next 10, 20 years, her agenda, her policies will essentially help us as Americans move forward to the next economy. We've all, if anyone who studied economy, and I'm not a novice, I'm not an expert in economy. I took economics, microeconomics, and microeconomics. Shout out to those professors, but that's about as much economics I can tell you guys. But I can tell you that um, if you look at the economics of the future, every country and every country loses its status based on the way the economic wave is going. We had the Industrial Revolution, which gave our strength. Then we had the military revolution, I call it, during World War II and after World War II, which created a lot of jobs and a lot of private sector jobs and a lot of just big defense contract spending, which create so that was the economy of that time. And then we get into the baby boomers era. You have the automobiles picks up, so it creates the auto industry. And we have that market, and then we have the '80s when you have the tech economy that came in, which started infant, and then you had the big oil, who's always been there for the last
Yeah.
100 years. Economy, yeah, all those economies we've led as America, and all those major economic shifts. And now we're talking 2020. The new economics is AI, artificial intelligence. That's going to be the new economics, and jobs and everything's going to be impacted by that. That's going to be our new economy. So it's going to be more incentivized for small business owners to essentially be employed. It's not going to be in traditional economy like people think, like with their mom and dad. You go apply for a job, and then you go for an interview, and then once you get that interview, you pray, you do whatever you can to get that job, and you get a paycheck. It's not going to be that economy anymore. Now our economy is going to be, I have the skill that I learned, and you need it, so I have to market you the skill, and then I have to. It's weird because I have to now market you the skill so you can see my skills, and then you hire me to
Yeah.
do a job. We saw this with social
Like
media when the
self-marketing.
YouTubers. Self marketing is going to be the new thing. It's going to be a new wave. So really, what's going to happen is you're going to have all these jobs that are going to be small businesses, right? I think your mic's working now, Seth.
Yeah, I think I switched an outlet. Does it sound normal now, or is it back to
Yeah,
the
it's still a little glitchy. Yeah, it's still glitchy.
if I
It
short
sounded good
concise
for a second.
statements work? Like two
Short, concise
like 2 or 3
statements, yes, works.
words.
Yeah, two
Oh,
or three words. Exactly. Gotta write down a number. So so as we move towards a market of small business owners, that is going to what's going to drive the economy of the next 10, 20 years. Because what's going to be what employers are looking for, not well, at least in my opinion, they're not looking for people who can do like a skill like typing or a skill like a traditional skill. They're looking for someone who's a creator, and that creator is going to be who gets hired in this next economy. And so that is going. I think it's wise on her part to put the focus on the next future. What the future is going to be. The future is going to essentially be creating a creator economy, which is equivalent to a small business economy. And so for me, I think that's brilliant. I think that's a sharp contrast for what Trump has, which is more focused on big corporate tax rates and tariffs. Because, yeah, you can give tax rates to. Here's a fallacy that a lot of people don't understand, and I am talking way more than I'm normally used to talking, as you guys can see.
it's good practice.
Um, uh, yeah, So here's the fallacy that comes with Trump's economic agenda. His fallacy is that he gives a tax rate to the upper 1% to the biggest corporations. But what happens is when he does that, the Reaganomics that principle applied to no longer is valid because he's negating the fact that it's trickle down. The whole idea is trickle down economics. So if you give tax breaks to the 1% or the corporations, will flow money down to the poorer class or the lower classes. The problem with that fallacy is AI is disrupting that model because if I give, for example, Apple, but this is not exclusive to Apple, this is any big corporation. If I get someone like Apple and I give him a tax break, right? At let's say I reduce his tax rate by 5-10%, the money in theory should trickle down to all Apple's workers or make lower products. So iPhones should cost you less, right? That's the theory. So what ended up happening is now that AI is coming to fruition, Apple sees it as well. Okay, well, why trickle the money down where we can lay off 50 people because we have an AI program who can do 50 of their jobs? And what happens is now that money's not trickling down, those people are unemployed, but Apple still gets the tax rate. So what you're doing, you're giving Apple massive profits unattended because trickle down economics is supposed to go down, but you're not understanding there's disruption in the business community, and that disruption is going to cause that money not to flow down because they don't need as many workers to do the same job anymore. So the real economic issue is how do we find those workers and employ new skills? Because what's going to happen is they're going to be out of work. And so how do we transition them into a small business mindset to be like, hey, instead of working for Apple, why don't you develop your own app and then use that app, and then sell it to Apple? It has to be a fundamental shift in the thinking of, we need to be more startups in the country versus there being more workers. And that is a fundamental shift. And that's why triple economic, that's why I don't think it's going to work anymore. It never really
Yeah.
worked, but it had some successes. So I can't say it's a total failure, but the little successes that it did have, it barely worked. But it's definitely not going to work now because now you're going to have workers who are no longer employable because they're being replaced by a computer. And we've talked about this on the show all the time, where AI is going to come and replace pretty much 60% of the jobs in America.
At least the
And
ones it
so what's
currently
going to
exists.
happen is, yeah, the current ones, yeah. And they're going to create jobs. I'm not going to say it's not, but those jobs are going to be creator content based. It's like they're going to be into creativity. Can you develop a show? Can you develop music? Can you develop this? Can you develop that? Can you develop this? And the key word there is develop. And so what's going to happen is that you're going to need to have more small business skills to be able to develop a baby company to be able to sell it. One of the things that I saw recently, a couple years, there's been a resurgence in maid services in America. No one really talks about it, but there's a resurgence of it.
Mm.
What happens is there's a lot of people, 2 or 3 people, that will get together and they're like, okay, we're going to do a maid service. We're all going to be business partners, the 3 of us, and we're going to share it. We're going to charge this person, I don't know, $200 to clean his house. But the 3 of us, we clean it, we'll be done in an hour. So we're making between the 3 of us probably like, I don't know, $70. We do that 8 hours a day, then we made a working wage.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm saying. So the mindset has changed. It's like before, you have to call a company, and then a company will send someone out there, and it'll be hours.
You know what
And
that
this
sounds
is
like?
very elitist. But
The
huh? What?
business you described sounds like a
What?
co-op.
Yeah, it sounds like a co-op. Yeah, it's exactly. So more and more, you see, that's exactly what you said. So co-ops, that's what's happening. Is like we're gonna have more and more businesses that are going to be created, and thinking forward, like Ms. Harris, Vice President Harris, that's the way we need to be investing. How do we invest in these people's ideas? Because that's the economy of the future. It's not going to be big corp creating jobs like it used to be.
Hmm.
It's going to be big corp going into this business. Like, we want to hire you to do this particular
Yeah.
thing here. Because, and
Contractors.
contractors, that's, we're going into the world of contractors, and it's becoming to the point where it's going to happen so fast. A lot of people don't see it
Hmm.
coming, but it's already here. Most people, I know when I went to law school, it was very different dreams. Like, people in law school wanted to work for big law firms, make $100,000 a year. Like, that's kind of the dream of a lawyer, right? But what happens is that's not realistic. It's more realistic to make $100,000 opening your own business as a law
Hmm.
firm than you would if you would go work for a big law, because big law is going to pay you like 50,000. Because guess what, you're
Yeah.
replaceable. But so, and that's what's happening. And the AI is disrupting the legal world too. And I only can speak about it because I'm in the legal world. But a lot of jobs are going to be replaced in the legal world. Like, legal secretaries are really non-existent anymore, and we're going to have maybe paralegals, but AI can write most of the letters that we do. So really, you're looking at most firms just need an attorney and one paralegal can operate a full firm. you know. And same thing with doctors' offices. They have usually 4 or 5 doctors. You don't really need that anymore because the AI can schedule your appointments, can tell you when to come in, set your Zoom meetings. You don't need a scheduler. So what you need is just a doctor and an assistant. And so that's 4 or 5 jobs that's gone. 4 or 5 jobs gone. How can these people be more employable? That's what Vice President Harris wants to address. She wants to address creating business loans, giving business loans to those people so they can create a new job. Because think about it, if you've been a paralegal for 20 years, you know all the pitfalls of being a paralegal. So you can create something where you can turn back and tell the firm, like, hey, I know you don't like doing this, but we can do it for this amount of dollars. And you'll make way more money, and you don't have to worry about the liability of paying for healthcare and all this other stuff, obviously, because we have Obamacare. So those are the things that I think that she's focused on in the economy. And I'm talking about the economy such a long time because at the end of the day, guys, anyone you ask, any pollster you ask, any Republican, Democrat, they always tell you every election, it always comes down to the economy. If the economy is bad, people feel like it's bad, they're going to vote you out. If they feel like it's good and they're surviving in it, they're going to keep you in. That's number one rule in politics. It's all about the economy. It's always going to be about the economy when it comes down to voting in presidential elections. And so I say that to say that I really, really hope that she does well. She focuses on her plan, her small business plan, and she really shows a light to Trump that, hey, your economic agenda is archaic. Like, you're talking about things like raising tariffs on China. And it's like, well, that's great, but do we really care if our stuff is made in China? We really don't. Most people don't because it's cheap. Most people, what they care about is American jobs. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, well, if the Chinese people are doing it, then where's my job? But that's the problem. We never really address that issue. It's like, okay, well, what are you good at, and what can we turn into a business? Because at the end of the day, that is the economy of the future. And I'm not saying that everybody here is going to be the next Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have to start emphasizing skills and less process.
Hmm.
Because I went to law school. I went to college. So, I didn't do it right away either. I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. I worked at a pizza job. I did other stuff before I went to college and went to law school. You know, so my path ended up that direction, but I still took many ways before I got there. So everyone's path doesn't have to be college, but everyone's path needs to be about workable skills that can work in the industry. Because college just shows you that you can pay attention and that's it. It's like you can pay attention, you can follow directions, pat on the back, good job, you got a degree. But what really matters is skills in business. And so what we I think we need to do is we need to move back to not necessarily trades of the traditional sense. I think that we need to move back to trades in a new sense where it's like when by the time you graduate high school, how many skills have you acquired while you're in
Yeah.
high school?
More versatility.
Like how many more versatility. It's not so much that you can follow my directions. It's much so how many problems can you solve
Mhm.
if I give you a set of problems? And that's where we should be shifting. I think, in my personal opinion, we should be shifting our education system to value that problem solving.
Yeah.
By the time you're in high school, you should be able to problem solve whatever field that you're in. And most people they don't get that skill in a college setting because it's not that's not what college is for, and that's not what high school is for. High school and college, their agenda is to make sure that you're a follower. To
Mhm.
make sure that you understand the rules. You know, here's Einstein theory of relativity. Make sure you memorize it, and then I'm going to test you on it, and that's cool. You know, when you look at what people are employing, they don't employ rote memorization. They employ people who can take that memorization and apply it.
Mm.
It's application of that information. It's not the information. So what I think is goes tailored back to my economic thing that I was telling about Kamala Harris is we have to revisit the education system because the education system is the backbone of anything that we're trying to do as a country. China knows this, and most countries know this, and so that's why they try to attack it the most. And so for us, we have to go about it and say, how many skills are people really coming out of school learning? Because that's what there's not that many skills. When you have an iPad who can do your math, who can tell you your English, you have an iPad that can tell you how to do math, how to do English, how to read, because it reads for you if you wanted to. And it's like, guess what? You lost the ability to count in your head. You lost the ability to write an essay. You lost the ability to even read to understanding. So if you lost all these skills, but what are you gaining? You've gained zero skills in that process. You learn how to write a message, but you don't know how to spell the word
Mhm.
because you write WYD,
Or it's autocorrect.
but you don't know what that even. Oh, autocorrect
Yeah.
it. So you're losing. So as a country, technology is great and it's necessary, but what happens is, what skills are we replacing when the technology does it? And that's where our I think our federal government, our state governments, that's what they're failing us because I think they just don't understand the real problem. Oh, I take that back. They do understand the real problem, but they're paid by lobbyists not to talk about the real problem. And
Yeah.
so, because you got to think, most corporations, they have this twofold agenda. Corporations want to keep their low wages. They don't want to increase wages. And so the more skills you have, the more they have to pay you. So they don't want that. And they want to also, show profitability. And so for them, they want you to buy the products. It's like if that's just the name of the game. It's like I want you. It's like internet. They'll sell 2 terabytes of internet for you for like 50
Mhm.
bucks, and they were like, "Yeah, this is the fastest internet possible. 2 terabytes. You're gonna get the best of the best." And you're like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. 2 terabytes internet. I'm gonna be able to surf all night. I'm gonna be able to do all this stuff. It's awesome." And then you look at your device that you buy, it only can accept 100 gigabytes. So you have 2 terabyte worth of
Yeah.
internet, but your device can even accept 100 gigabytes. And sorry for people who don't know the difference. Terabytes and gigabytes, terabytes are way more than gigabytes.
Way more.
And just
Like
No, no,
millions
no, way more. And so you're,
between difference between millions and billions.
huh?
Like the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, billions and billions. Yeah, and so what happens is you're buying a product, the company's making this profitability, but did you gain anything from that? Can you do anything more than what you could have did before that? And that's what the problem is. It's a true problem that we a two so it's two problems that the only solution you can really come up with is picking one. What are you picking? Are you going to pick building the skill level up, or are you going to build not being profitable? And I'm telling you right now, America's a capitalist society, so they're going to always pick profits. They're not going to pick the worker because it's not in the best interest for them to pick the worker, and it's for us, the workers, to figure out how to make it their best interest. Which brings me to the whole COVID. COVID was, scary for a lot of people, but it presented an opportunity for workers to have some rights back because workers started thinking like, hey, if you can make me stay home to do work, why do I drive 4 hours this way, or excuse me, an hour that way and back, and lose an hour of my day and spend my gas money when I can just do the same job on a laptop? It's my skills are still the same skills. I haven't changed my skills. The medium in which I do them is different, but the skill is still the same. And so it gave workers the ability to work from home. And companies didn't like it, but they were forced to because they had COVID restrictions and they couldn't put people to work. And so it's for us to be more knowledgeable about, okay, what skills that we have that the corporations need that we can use as our bargaining chip. Because right now the corporation's only objective is to make sure that there's very little skills coming out of school, there's very little skills coming out of high school, and there's no incentive to teach more skills because they want to keep the wages down, and they rather just get a computer, build that computer, and tell that computer to do something because excuse me, the computer doesn't cost them any more than a worker would once he gains a new skill. You tell a computer to do this, it's a gain a new skill, but I can still pay the same thing versus a worker. If they get a new skill, then guess what? I have to pay you more. And so the business world is kind of the problem, and our government is supposed to be there to stop them from doing this stuff. I mean, that's why I'm one of the few Republicans I like is Theodore Roosevelt because he kind of talked about this. Yeah, and Theodore Roosevelt was very serious about, corporations having too much power. Same thing what happened to Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was talking about the military-industrial complex, but what he really was saying that defense spending and defense contractors have too much power. The reason why, and their biggest fear of that is the more power they have, the more they have the ability to control little things like school, little things like education, little things like workers' rights. And the way they sway that is they start buying lobbyists and they start buying politicians to be like, yeah, we don't want that policy. We want this policy. We don't want that policy. We want this policy. So that's what Theodore Roosevelt and Dwight Eisenhower tried to warn us about. Even though we're Republican, they were trying to warn us that these people have too much power, and their power is to make sure that you don't ever come up from your situation and your skills. And so that's why there's a long-winded answer of saying that I think Camilla is doing a great thing by trying to reinvest in small businesses because she's trying to bring the money and the investment back to workers. And it's up to us as workers to now start to establish what skills can we bring to the market to give us better bargaining power. And so I think that with she's doing a very good job in that sense.